What if the problem isn't that you need a break from your career? Maybe you need a break from the person your current job has made you become. Hey you, welcome. Stay with me for a sec because I want to tell you a story. So, I'm lying on a lash table in Brooklyn like I always do weekly. Someone's gluing tiny hairs above my eyelids and I'm supposed to be relaxed, but instead I'm mentally rehashing a meeting I just had at work. I was working for a tech company that, in my opinion, just didn't function. High turnover, no real systems, and a culture that felt chaotic on the best days. I didn't think it was fixable, and honestly, I didn't think it was built to work. At first, I thought I could handle it, that if I just said the right thing or set another boundary, things would shift. But instead of my usual lash appointment nap, which I'm still mad I missed, by the way, I had this moment of clarity, awake. Here I was, stressed about a place I didn't believe in when I was supposed to be at peace. I wasn't going to save that company, and I wasn't supposed to. I walked out of that appointment with a fresh set of lashes and a strange sense of calm. I had made my decision. I was done. But to understand how I really got there, we've got to go back a few weeks. It was a Thursday morning in March, and I was sitting at my kitchen table. I was setting up for another interview for this podcast, which hadn't launched yet. The first episode is about micro-retirements. I've got my coffee and my favorite mug, good lighting, and a professional backdrop, aka one wall of my kitchen, and I look like I have my shit together. What you can't see is I spent the night before dealing with impossible deadlines and crazy expectations. And I don't say impossible. So that's how bad it was. I'm interviewing Fauna, a brilliant communication strategist who left a dream job at Instagram because her body literally forced her to stop. She's telling me about waking up without an alarm clock, about trusting her nervous system over her paycheck. And I'm nodding along, taking notes, asking thoughtful follow-up questions, being professional. But inside, I'm thinking, girl, I feel you. Because right now my nervous system is screaming at me to run. It's ironic. Here I was asking women about the courage it takes to leave work a few weeks from my own escape. I just didn't know it yet. Over the next few weeks, I'd interview 5 more women, each conversation chipping away at something I'd been telling myself, that I could make this situation work, and I just needed to try harder, that leaving would mean I failed. But with every story I heard and every quote I transcribed, I started to realize I wasn't just researching micro-retirements. I was building the case for why I needed a break. This is Candice Talks About Everything. I'm Candice, and every week I take something that's been living rent-free in my brain and I unpack it. Sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes a meme, and sometimes it's a full-blown existential crisis. This isn't a TED Talk. I like to think of it more as a voice note with sources. Today, we're talking about micro-retirements, why younger generations are rejecting the idea of grinding for 40 years before finally getting to enjoy life, and what it actually takes to make this kind of move. Or at least that was my original plan anyway. But over the course of preparing this episode, I started to wonder, what if the problem isn't that you need a break from your career, but maybe you need a break from the person your current job has made you become? This idea came to me last November when my friend Nicole sent me a photo from Lisbon. She was eating pasta at 2 p.m. on a weekday, and the caption just said, "Month 3 of figuring out who I am when I'm not in meetings." She wasn't even trying to flex on me. She was just living her best life. Nicole had made 6 figures at her dream job. She had the apartment, the title, the whole thing, and she walked away. What stuck with me about the photo she sent was how peaceful she looked. She looked like someone who had finally stopped holding her breath, and I was jealous. I'd felt that peace exactly once before. During the pandemic when, like a lot of you, I took my own unintentional break. I sold most of my things, lived in hotels and Airbnbs for a year, and prioritized peace over productivity. For the first time in a long time, I could hear myself think, no Sunday scaries, no morning dread, just quiet. And that experience changed me. Nicole's photo hit so hard because she had found that same peace, but on purpose. Now, before we dive in deeper, let me address the terminology I'm using, because some people hear micro-retirement and think, isn't that just a sabbatical? And that was my first thought too. Like, here y'all go, calling cornrows boxer braids again. But these are actually different things with different histories. The term sabbatical comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, meaning rest. In biblical times, people took off every 7th year to let the land recover. Harvard helped formalize the sabbatical model in the 1800s. Back then, it usually meant a full year off after 6 years of teaching with the expectation that you'd return to the same job. It was structured, academic, and mostly reserved for tenured professors. Today, it looks a little different. Some professors get a semester off at full pay, others take a full year at partial pay. You often have to submit a plan or a proposal, and not everyone qualifies. It's still a benefit, but no longer guaranteed or one size fits all. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to wait 6 years just to earn a break where I still have to work, because sabbaticals aren't vacations. They're for writing books and doing research, producing something. Rest is secondary if it shows up at all. Today, companies like Adobe and Uber offer sabbaticals after 5 to 8 years of employment. You get 4 weeks, maybe 6 if you're lucky. Your job waits for you while you're gone, making it essentially a long vacation. You'll come back to the same desk, same title, same everything. But a micro-retirement is different. There's no approval process. No one's holding your spot. And you don't have to wait for a company to give you permission. You give it to yourself. Instead of pausing your life, you're questioning whether you want that life at all. One is institutional, the other is revolutionary. But for the purposes of this podcast, I'll use those terms interchangeably because that's just what people do. According to Deloitte, nearly half of workers aged 18 to 41 have taken a career break of 6 months or more. We're not talking about a few people having a quarter-life crisis. We're talking about a generation rewriting the rules. Which brings me back to those 6 women who were about to accidentally talk me into changing my entire life. First, I want to focus on Arlisha. When I talked to her, I knew I was interviewing someone who'd made it.
I was bi-coastal, so I was based between Miami, Florida, where I live, and obviously the job was based out of San Francisco.
She had the kind of career that makes people lean in at parties.
I took a role working for Stephen Curry at his company, SC30 Inc.
And she just walked away.
I made a decision to say, if I stayed longer in this role, how would this serve me in the long run, right? And it ended up being that it wouldn't necessarily serve me.
She's talking, and I'm sitting here like, wait, you left Steph Curry on purpose? But it turns out she'd been waiting for this moment for a while.
I had Eat, Pray, Love on the board since 2012. I remember reading the book and I put on my board, one day I will have an Eat, Pray, Love experience. Now, I didn't know at what point in time of life that I would be doing that, but I've always wanted to do it.
So she did it.
Barcelona was going to be my Eat, Pray was my Costa Rica, and Love was Jamaica.
All solo trips, a topic we're going to touch on later, so just put a pin in that.
I've always prided myself on this notion of being Arlisha first and how I show up, and not being, oh, I'm Arlisha, I work in sports, I work with, D-Wade, Steph Curry. Like, I was able to relax and be comfortable in this identity of showing up as just, hey, I'm Arlisha.
Research calls it identity fusion. It's when who you are and what you do becomes so entangled that stepping away doesn't just feel like quitting a job. It feels like erasing yourself. The American Psychological Association says this kind of over-identification leads to emotional exhaustion and loyalty to systems that are actively burning you out. If your worth is tied to your work, then leaving isn't just inconvenient. It's an identity crisis. I love that Arlisha didn't just take a sabbatical. She stepped away from the story that said the most interesting thing about her was her title. And when she introduced herself without the resume, she didn't disappear. She got louder.
It was January. It was actually a week after I got back from Jamaica. I'm on the couch, random. I probably was watching something on Netflix. And I just took a beat to think about the fact that I'm actually doing this thing that I've always wanted to do.
So, the woman who worked with NBA stars started a podcast from her couch while watching Real Housewives. That clarity came from stillness.
Yes, the clarity came because of the stillness.
Not from another strategy meeting or networking event, but from sitting on her couch, doing nothing productive, and finally having space to think. And when I asked her what advice she'd give someone who's scared to pause, she said,
it doesn't have to be a whole eat, pray, love, going away, going abroad for a year. It could literally just be this whole idea of micro sabbaticals, looking at your PTO allotment and saying, okay, 1 week I'm going to take off, go for the hike, go to the restaurant that you've been wanting to go have a solo dinner night.
And I'm taking that advice. Now, Arlisha reminded me about identity, but Fauna, who I mentioned at the top of the episode, taught me about survival. She was a communications lead at Instagram, a job she'd always wanted, but her body had other plans.
I found myself in a situation where I was diagnosed with like a mental health condition where I had to take some time of leave. And upon completing said leave, I did not know how to handle work stress and life balance. I didn't have a plan. Like I needed more time, but was not afforded that time.
She told me about the morning she couldn't get out of bed. Not wouldn't, couldn't. Her nervous system had basically pulled the emergency brake.
Your body, your ability to take care of yourself, your nervous system is like your primary source of income. It's not the paycheck, it's not the work that you do. Like if you are not able to physically do work and your body is at a point of just like stopping you.
While she was saying this, I was dealing with my own warning signs. I'd had an eye twitch for weeks. My own migraines were getting worse. Those 3 a.m. wake-ups when my brain decides to replay every work disaster, real or imagined, were coming every night. I had to get sleeping pills from my doctor, which was my most serious sign, because chronic stress literally changes our bodies. According to Harvard Medical School, prolonged stress can actually shrink the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function. The Alzheimer's Association reports that chronic sleep deprivation is linked to increased risk of dementia. So we're out here emailing at midnight and quite literally forgetting who we are. We're not built to be in fight or flight mode for years at a time, but that's exactly what we're doing. Fauna took 6 months off, and guess what she noticed?
It was great. Like I didn't have to wake up with an alarm clock.
She put her phone on D&D. She stopped checking emails before bed and started reading actual books again.
The real freedom to regulating your body is having your phone on Do Not Disturb.
I actually laughed when she said that because I'm the same way. My phone's always on Do Not Disturb, no notifications except for actual emergencies. But I only do that for my personal life. Work notifications own me 24/7. A few weeks after that interview, I made a decision and freed myself from that truly horrible tech company. My mental health was shot. My physical health was following. And just like Fauna, my body was keeping score. And I was losing, if you can't tell. Fauna helped me realize I could trust what my body was telling me. And for that, she's the homie for life. Now, Ada showed me something different. She wasn't running from burnout or chasing a dream. She was methodical about her escape. For context, Ada had been working in community organizing and economic development for years. She'd gone from making $14K a year at city council to leading a major business association. And when she decided to take a break, She planned for it like a military operation.
If you can live off of, $14,000 and live very minimally, can you do it without a job, actually? Can you just lean into not doing that? And setting myself up with more financial systems as the years went by, things like increasing my investments, maxing out my retirement when I was able to do that.
See, Ada understood something most of us miss. If you've survived on nothing, you know exactly how little you need. She'd already lived the worst case scenario.
I have to break that scarcity mindset every day.
That hit me because the scarcity mindset isn't just about money. It's generational. It's watching your parents work themselves sick. It's knowing you're the safety net for your family. It's the voice that says rest is selfish when other people are counting on you. Ada took 6 months off, but she didn't just wing it like I would. She treated her break like a business decision. She came back stronger, with better boundaries and higher rates. After talking to Ada, I started my own spreadsheet. Not because I'm naturally organized, because I'm not, but she showed me sometimes the most radical thing you can do is plan your own freedom. Ada planned for everything, while Joanna's story was a stark reminder that life can have other plans, and sometimes those plans don't include your perfectly mapped out hiatus. Joanna had been running nonprofits for years. She's the kind of person that everyone depends on. So when she finally decided to take a break, she had it all mapped out. 6 months, self-care, career reflection, maybe some travel. But life had other plans.
My initial plan was to take 6 months off, and I wanted to recuperate health-wise, just mentally, but also give myself the space to think about what I wanted to do long term. Why am I so dissatisfied? Well, I think by July or August, my dad was diagnosed with sarcoma cancer.
Joanna's break forced her to confront something many of us avoid: the gap between who we are and who we perform. And when you're dealing with a lot, there's no energy left for performance.
One of the things that I've learned about life, and I think this is like the biggest lesson I would wish on anyone, is like looking at yourself and like confronting yourself, getting to know yourself. That is the hardest yet most rewarding thing.
Who are we when we're not achieving?
I had achieved the dream of my parents, who are immigrants, came from a working class family and parents from Central America, where education and job security was everything.
The cultural piece is so real. In immigrant families and in communities of color, rest isn't just personal, it's political. When our parents sacrificed everything for us to have opportunities, stepping back feels like betrayal, even when we're drowning. For me, there's an added layer. Growing up working class, I've always had this deep fear of falling back into poverty. It's that little voice in the back of my head that says, rest is dangerous. If you slow down, you'll lose everything.
What if this time was intentional? What would it look like for me to take the breaking intergenerational cycles? Like, what would that look like for me?
Joanna came back to work eventually, but she'll never be her old self again.
I wanted to be the boss of me.
Her parents worked hard, stayed quiet, and pushed through like so many immigrant families do. And Joanna could have followed that script, but she made a different choice. Not because it was easy, but because the alternative felt like erasing herself, like becoming another story about what happens when you never stop. After these women taught me about identity, survival, and navigating life's chaos, Denitha took it a step further. She hadn't just taken a break. She designed her entire life around the ability to rest. She's the creator of Money and Mimosas, a business that helps luxury founders raise capital, but she's also the master of integrating rest into her annual rhythm. Danitha doesn't just take breaks. She structures her entire year around them. She's moved beyond the idea of one-off breaks to something more intentional and recurring.
My sabbatical this year, I should say that every year now I do a 3-month sabbatical. So after 2021, my sabbaticals are now 3 months, and each sabbatical has a theme.
While a friend of mine who's on a break said he sometimes struggles to fill his days, Danitha approaches her time off with focused curiosity. She mentioned her current theme.
This year's theme is Black fashion history. I will be living in DC and Brooklyn for a month each, and then also spending time in Europe. And I want to dive into the world of fashion.
This isn't just a break. It's an immersive learning experience, a way to pursue passions that don't fit into the daily grind. Her approach to work and life is fundamentally different from what we traditionally do. She's built a business that supports her need for rest rather than be consumed by it.
As an entrepreneur, I've designed my business so that there are specific times of the year where my team knows that, hey, only reach out to Danitha if things are literally on fire. And that means literally Google.com and ChatGPT are not working anymore.
This is a powerful example of an alternative work model where success isn't measured by constant availability, but by intentional design and trusting your team. It redefines what productivity looks like, not as endless output, but as strategic periods of deep focus and equally deep rest. Danitha's life design isn't just a luxury, it's a blueprint for navigating an uncertain future on her own terms. When I asked her about the financial aspect of taking annual breaks, especially as an entrepreneur, she shared a philosophy that truly shifted my perspective.
From the beginning, I've always been the person who, when I talk about money, it's about what life do you want? Let's lead with that. And that was a big lesson for me during the pandemic. It solidified that knowing I had that money follows form. If I am very clear on the type of life I want, down to the sense in terms of smells that I want to be surrounded by and immersed by, how I want my time to flow, money will flow in to support that.
Money follows form. Let that sink in. It's a complete inversion of how most of us are taught to think about finances. Instead of chasing money and hoping it buys us the life we'd want, we should design the life we want, and the resources align and will support it. I know that's kind of woo-woo, but that's me in a nutshell, sorry. And even if it is woo-woo, I also think it's a profound redefinition of success where you prioritize well-being and aligned living over arbitrary financial targets. And if the idea of a themed 3-month annual break still feels impossible or overwhelming, Danitha gave the best advice, a practical exercise for anyone to start flexing that rest muscle. Don't just start with your budget. Start with your afternoon.
What does your perfect afternoon look like? And then extrapolate that out to however long the sabbatical will be.
It echoes what Arlisha told me about flexing that muscle of letting go. Because sometimes rest isn't just about leaving everything behind. It's about imagining what would happen if you just started where you are and asked for more. Every woman I interviewed offered a critical piece of the puzzle, but Danica's story was the final, undeniable push, the one that taught me the absolute necessity of radical self-trust to actually make the leap. Like many other women in this episode, Danica experienced burnout from her corporate career. This led her to a leap of faith powered by solo travel and a deep dive into her own intuition. Danica runs a company called Liberty Leave. She helps people take intentional breaks from work without blowing up their finances or their futures. It's part of a growing sabbatical economy. According to Fast Company, there's a wave of coaches, platforms, and even travel companies popping up to help people step away from work with intention. People don't just want time off. They want help making it sustainable. But I'm getting off topic. Let's just get back to Danica. In 2018, she was on the edge of burnout. She'd always wanted to live abroad, so she planned her own version of a micro-retirement, what she would eventually call a Liberty Leave. She saved for 1.5 years, then booked 6 months of solo travel, that number keeps coming up, across Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. It wasn't just a trip, it was a full reset.
My most valuable lesson was just learning to trust my intuition.
She describes herself as
A type A person that has everything planned out by the hour in a color-coded Google Calendar.
But this trip forced her to surrender to something new. She fell in love with her own company. She trusted herself in a way she never had before. And that kind of shift isn't unique to Danica. A 2022 study in tourism and hospitality looked at solo travel reviews from Canadian women, she's Canadian by the way, and found that navigating unfamiliar places alone, like figuring out public transit or managing language barriers, helped women build real confidence and emotional resilience. Remember when I said way back in our Alicia section that we'd come back to this? Well, here we are, baby. That moment when you're outside of your comfort zone, no title to lean on, no structure to hide behind, and you still figure it out, that's what sticks. That's what changes people. It's not about checking destinations off a list. It's about realizing you can figure things out, be alone, and still feel grounded. That you don't have to know the next step to move forward. But while you might build confidence, returning to corporate life isn't easy.
It was definitely a harsh transition going back into like a very regimented life of, going to meetings that were booked back to back and having to cross things off my to-do list again. It was definitely difficult for me. And unfortunately, as much as I hate to admit it, I fell back into the same traps that got me into burnout in the first place.
Danica said she fell back into old patterns at first. It wasn't until a second unexpected Liberty Leave, prompted by being laid off, that things really shifted. Now she helps others do the same. Through Liberty Leave, Danica works with clients to figure out why they need a break, where they might want to go, how to save, and maybe most importantly, how to come back. A significant part of her work involves preparing clients for reintegration into real life. This is crucial because taking a break can carry long-term financial risks. You might miss out on retirement contributions. You could drain savings you didn't mean to touch. You risk losing career momentum and with it, potential raises or promotions. So the question isn't just, can I afford to take a break? It's, can I afford what happens after? For instance, resume gaps. For a long time, if you had a career break, hiring managers act like you forgot how to type. And depending on your industry, that fear still holds. But things are changing. The pandemic made career gaps more common and more understandable. Some companies are finally seeing the value in non-linear career paths. There's even a growing returnship industry designed to help people re-enter the workforce, like I said earlier. Even with all that though, the fear is still there because it's not just about what employers think. It's also about how you feel when you come back. And Danica affirms,
yes, of course, the environments around you are contributing to this, but it's also you. Like, I can't put the blame on my job 24/7. Like, I also need to change some behaviors.
That's why she leaves her clients with this reminder.
You're not too old and it's not too late, and you can switch things up as often as you need to. Let's not, continue to live lives that do not fulfill us just because we're already living it.
I was in Costa Rica while scripting this episode and thinking about all these stories. I wrote this in a cafe where the energy was just different. People walked slower. Pura Vida wasn't just something they said, it was how they moved. One day, I stopped by a shop that was closed even though it was supposed to be open, and I'll be honest, I was annoyed for a second, but then it hit me. It didn't matter. I wasn't picking up anything important. I could just come back later. There doesn't need to be a panic behind every task. The whole system in Costa Rica seems to me to run on peace. Compare that to living in the US or the UK, where the baseline is pressure. We're always racing against the clock, trying to prove our value. Even our breaks have to be productive. We need a skincare routine, a side hustle, a new certification, and a journal full of goals just to feel like we deserve to sit down for a minute. But when you look at countries like Costa Rica, they consistently outrank the US on global happiness and well-being indexes. According to the 2023 World Happiness Report, Costa Rica ranks in the top 25 for life satisfaction, higher than the US despite having significant lower GDP per capita. It wasn't lost on me that I was writing about micro-retirements while in a place that actually made the idea feel possible. And it made me wonder, what would life look like if our society was built to help people live, not just work? That question, amplified by every woman I spoke to, brought me face to face with my own reality. It was my breaking point. By the time you're listening to this, I'm not on a micro-retirement because, funny enough, I like what I do and don't want to break just yet. But this is how that Thursday morning in March, starting with Fauna, became the story of my own revolution. It's how I said no to a company that didn't serve me and yes to the ones that do. And I am planning my break. It's coming. The women in this episode and the millions like them choosing to step away aren't just taking breaks. They're participating in a quiet revolution. It's a revolution where personal well-being supersedes corporate loyalty, where peace is a higher currency than prestige, and where your nervous system has more authority over your LinkedIn profile. For too long, we've been told success looks like a straight climb and you'll finally reach some distant retirement age with a reward. But what if real success is building a life that allows for rest, for exploration, for simply being, not just doing? What if the bravest act isn't just pushing through, but choosing to opt out of a system that's actively burning you out? My own breaking point on that lash-table wasn't just about upending my career completely right now. It was about finally answering the question that I started this episode with. What if the problem wasn't that I needed a break from my career? Maybe I needed a break from the person a certain job made me become. I realized I was done being that person. She's not as cute as I am now anyway. And for the first time in a long time, I feel the peace Nicole found in Lisbon, the quiet joy of a nervous system, and other things unclenching. This isn't about quitting your job. It's about quitting the idea that your worth is tied to your work. It's about remembering who you are without the title, the deadlines, or the midnight emails. It's about building a life so aligned with your truest self that the money, opportunities, and peace all follow form. You don't need permission to rest. You don't need a policy, a promotion, or a six-figure bank account to pause. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is stop, even just for a minute, even just to hear yourself think again. And if the system won't give you room to breathe, take it anyway. Because if you wait for permission to rest, you'll wait your whole damn life. Thank you for listening. If you want to hear more from the women I spoke to, you can find the full interviews on my Substack or my YouTube. And subscribe to my podcast or I'll cry. You can listen everywhere. I'm on socials at It's Candice B, and I'd love to hear what this episode sparked for you. Leave a review, send a message, or share your own take on this topic. We're building a curious little corner on the internet here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. Next time, we're diving into why my auntie hates Beyonce. Spoiler, the hate isn't just about Beyonce. See you then. Bye.